I need to change the color of this light after I work out because I just look like a tomato.
I'm a tomato.
I'm a tomato. I was going to show you this real quick. Our mutual friend Mark Lyons got me.
Oh, I haven't put it together.
Yeah. So I use this now for work. So to let people know that I'm in a meeting or whatever, because it's got a little remote control. It's kind of fun. Thanks, Mark.
Oh, for the family to know, leave me alone.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, not necessarily leave me alone. I mean, I'm in the middle of the room. It's more of don't do the dishes, don't get ice.
That makes sense.
I got muted in a meeting today because people were not aware I was in the meeting, and they started shuffling around and putting dishes away and that stuff.
And they don't know.
No. It is someday I'll find a different place to hang out that's not in the middle of the front room. But this is where
Are we live yet?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay, cool.
You were just so those of you who are watching, listening, you now understand that our banter is no different.
No different
when it's recording versus when it's not.
Is he just talking, or have we started? Okay. So hello everyone, welcome to tonight, and tonight we're going to talk about Joe. I've been doing interviews, and I'm so excited about these interviews I'm getting to do with people because I hear things about them I never knew, but I haven't interviewed you yet. And so I want to tonight just have a conversation with you, about your life, your history. There are pieces of your story that I don't know. That, like, for instance, where did you actually grow up? Was it in Montana, Wyoming, or was it in Oregon?
I bounced back and forth. I was born in North Bend.
Okay.
On the coast.
Yeah.
And my dad worked for Pacific Power and Light Company, PP&L is what they called it at that time, and they were located in a number of states. And when he was offered a promotion, it usually entailed moving. So I was born in North Bend, and we moved to Grants Pass, then we moved to Lakeview, still in Oregon, and then he was offered a management job in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and we were there for 3 years, and moved back to Portland for 6 years, and then moved to Wyoming for another 3 years before finally settling back here. So we bounced back and forth quite a bit.
You did? Can you in your head think of how many times you've moved when you were but by the time you graduated high school?
I don't know.
More than 10? Less than 10?
No. It wasn't like I was a military brat. I mean, they move all the time.
Yeah, so not quite that much.
Let me see. 1, 2, 3. You mean how many times I moved or how many places I lived? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Lived.
I'd say
lived might be better.
6, 7 places before. I mean, 6 by the time when I graduated from high school. But in terms of when I lived with my parents one more time would be 7 before my parents separated, and after that it's like it's just me at that point.
Right. Well, yeah, and once you get kind of out of high school, it kind of changes a little bit, right?
Right.
Because you could have your own choice about where you live.
It's elective, yes, yeah.
Right. Wow. So how did you handle moving so many times socially? That's hard on kids when they don't have continuous friends.
When I reflect on it, it was exciting. It was sad and exciting. I remember really the last big move we had. I had just finished my sophomore year in high school. And it was the best year of school socially I'd ever had. And it was like, I was still excited about the opportunity to move because there were new people to meet, new adventures to be had. And having moved enough before that, you just know that you're going to connect with people, you're going to make friends. And I credit, I think, my ability to connect with people with having moved so many times.
That makes sense.
Vanessa grew up in the same house, until she graduated from high school, and her parents lived there even when we started dating when she was 22. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I moved once, really. No, yeah, once in all of my childhood when I was in between third and fourth grade, and it was hard for me. I remember clearly being quite upset, about how much I knew this place. I remember saying to myself, I know every crack in the sidewalk in front of my house, and now I don't know nothing. And so, yeah, that's just different. And so, which place did you enjoy the most?
Well, the place that I consider home,
There you go.
like when I reflect on what's home, is 6662 Southeast Fernburg Road, Milwaukee, Oregon. That's the one. 362-7902. That was Rock Springs. Yeah, but that's
Isn't it weird how you can remember those things?
653-5767.
Can you remember your phone number too?
Yeah. Well, yeah. 362-7902 was Rock Springs.
Same. So, Milwaukee, yes.
Yeah, Milwaukee, because we were there 6 years. I went to 3 different schools in that 6 years because, 5th, 6th grade, middle school, first 2 years of high school. So I had 3 different experiences of having to acclimate to new people. But that's the place that I feel most connected with, and I still drive past it a few times a year just to look at it and reflect on all the things that happened when we lived there.
But you didn't graduate high school there.
No,
right?
I was in Wyoming. Yeah,
that was in Wyoming.
Now,
Wyoming. One of your best friends is Dennis, and that's when you met him?
No.
Because he grew up in that area, right?
You're talking about Dennis Corwin?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis I met at Clackamas Community College, but that's after I came back from college in Nebraska.
Oh, I thought I always was under the impression that you knew him way back. But it's still college. That's still a long time.
Yeah. No, I still have some friends from like 5th grade that I see a few times a year, and we still stay connected. But no, Dennis Corwin, he and I met as kind of rivals in theater at college.
That's right. He was really into theater.
Right. Yeah.
And you were too.
Yeah, I was a theater major, and he was. I can't remember if he was theater or if he was a music major, one or the other.
At Clackamas Community College.
Right. I transferred there from college in Nebraska when my parents moved back to Oregon.
Okay. So you graduated high school, and did you go directly to college?
Yeah. I went to a little liberal arts college, Presbyterian liberal arts college. I wasn't Presbyterian, but in Hastings, Nebraska.
Which brings me to this. Okay, so you grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys regularly go to Catholic school class?
Yeah.
Regularly until there was a point. I know your dad has his own story, but what is your story with that? Because at some point you obviously left the Catholic Church. Why? When did that happen? What was a little bit of the story with that? Because I know I've never heard that.
I think part of it is growing up Catholic. It seemed weird that other people weren't Catholic. It was all that I knew. I do remember when we lived in Rock Springs, I went to a Baptist, like VBS for a few days. And when my dad found out, he told us we couldn't go anymore. In
the heretics.
Well, with our Irish background is pretty strong, and so I think there's ingrained in that some Catholic versus Protestant that was part of.
Oh yeah, the whole
part of that
things going on and over there. Yeah.
And also, I mean, it's just a matter of pride. You're an Irish Catholic. That's part of your identity.
But you are.
Yeah, and didn't so much have to do with. I don't think in my family it had so much to do with this is the only way. It's like this is who we are, more than anything.
That it was
else.
Identity. It was culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Which don't you think that's true for a lot of Catholics that it's really about culture to them?
I would say that's true for most mainline Christian denominations through like 80s into the 80s.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah.
If you go to little, Emmanuel Presbyterian down the road from me, there's a lot of people there that identity, social life. I mean, so much of who you are, your stature in the
bound
community,
up into that.
Bound up in that, and so I grew up in that.
So how did you make that transition to Protestant, basically?
Yeah. I don't even think that I made a transition. It was when I got to college, You know, it was the friends that I had were in Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and you
Hmm.
know, I didn't know that there was not a tension, but a tension between denominations. It didn't really matter to me. You know, to me, it was like, yeah, it's Christ. It's all about Christ. And so I started going to
Ah,
different services, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is very different than the way that I'm used to worshiping. It really
huh.
wasn't until later when I really decided that I wanted to spend some time digging into different doctrinal topics that I went, oh, I'm probably not Catholic anymore, you know, because I can't identify with this. But you know, when I was in high school, I went to a Catholic high school, and religion was my favorite subject, and I dug into the Gospels, and I loved it. I mean, it was so,
You've always loved the Bible, right?
yeah, from the point where I decided to be serious about reading it and studying
Hmm.
it. I mean, religion class at my Catholic high school made me love the Bible.
Hmm.
And my instructors were so passionate about the Bible. You know, I mean, they would just almost froth. They were so excited, and because I was interested, we fed off of each other. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
so you know, so when I say I don't think I really made a transition, it was just more of a realization at some point. I guess I'm really not Catholic anymore, and you know, I would even say when Vanessa and I started to date, well, when we were together as a couple,
Hmm.
you know, that we were trying to decide, you know, she grew up Southern Baptist, which was a long way from Roman
Long
Catholic.
ways from Catholic, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, well, where do we want Marissa to go to church? We knew that we wanted her to, you know, to have a foundational faith. We went just like that young couple at our church, like, let's go to a few different denominations and figure out kind of where do we sit. And even then, it wasn't so
Oh,
much about doctrine, it was about the culture of the
interesting.
congregation. And what I'll
What
say,
felt good?
I wouldn't, well, not necessarily,
Right.
I mean, it's part of it's feeling, part of it is, I think I have enough confidence in, in who I am, and the time I've spent within, like, that if I went to a church and they doctrinally there was something that was weird, that if I can ignore, I could probably ignore that for the sake of knowing that I'm in a place where I feel comfortable worshiping, which for some
Hmm.
people I think I think that might bother some people, but um, and
Well, you're not easily swayed theologically.
I'm I try to be a sponge. I try to be open, but I'm not necessarily immediately convinced.
Right.
I try to be curious.
Right. You're not unteachable, but you're not just a wind in the wave and just easily influenced to go wherever someone
Yeah,
suggests you
yeah.
go. Yeah, you're thoughtful with your faith, and it sounds like you've always been that way.
I'd say that's true. I mean, I remember taking communion and really considering, you know, in the Catholic Church, the wafer dissolving in my mouth
Mm.
and looking at the crucifix and just thinking about what that represented, and you know, many times being brought to tears in that consideration. You know that, and I guess as much as anything, it's been relational. You know, my relationship with who he is and what he has done for me, and
Yeah.
that may be part of why being swayed is a bit is less likely to happen, because I'm always looking at, well, who is this guy who
Hmm.
died for me, and what does
Yeah.
that mean? And then the rest of the stuff going into our 4Ds, you know, what would divide, debate, or you know,
Right.
discuss. You know, the Jesus died for me. That's the most important part. You know.
And so you've had an interesting his story with went to a cruise ship for a while. You were a cruise director, and then you worked at a bank. I mean, what's a little bit of your work story, and what do you do now? Because I don't think people get what you do.
Oh, gosh, Vanessa thinks this is hilarious because we did. Okay, I'll just preface this. We took a trip from Portland to Texas. We drove down there
Hmm.
together, and that's quite a drive. But we did it in, I think, 2 days. So I mean, we were driving, driving, driving. We had a lot of time to talk. And during that, she realized that I've had maybe almost every job a person could have. You know, My first job, I worked for a newspaper.
Yeah.
I've worked on a lot of restaurant work, delivered
Yes, you have.
pizza.
Yeah.
But in terms of what I consider like being a professional, I started working at a bank. It was as a teller. It was miserable. I hated it. I was terrible at. I was really good. Here's the issue. I was really good at it for about 3 months, and then I got so bored that I got terrible at it. There was a challenge initially, and then once the challenge was gone, who cares?
It's like, yeah, what's the point?
Yeah. And then after that, I did some local cruise stuff here with the Portland Spirit, where my best friend Dennis still works.
Yep.
And then I just went, I gotta get a life. I think I was 26 and I'm like, I gotta get a life. And I went, I got a job on a cruise ship. I started out as a DJ on the cruise ship, which I was also terrible at. Oh no, I was terrible at it. I remember the people in Manhattan, we get people out of Manhattan and they would just be like, you suck. And I'd be like, you shut up, and they're like, you're cool, man, you're cool. But I mean, that was my experience as a DJ.
Well, that's also Manhattan. So
well, that's right. You learn. But I told myself I'd work on ships for 2 years, and I transitioned from DJ to assistant cruise director in that time. But that's also where I met Vanessa, who was a singer and a dancer in the theater group. And she gave me a phone call. I was in Australia, and she was in Puerto Rico, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to move to either Chicago or Seattle. Either you move with me and our relationship continues, or we say goodbye." And so I left the cruise ship, and we moved to Seattle, where I worked for a bank for a few years. But I mean, we don't need to go through it all. Ultimately, I got into consulting. It was really through working for Washington Mutual. Hello, dog.
I know, and I'm the only person here today. I thought there wouldn't be a problem.
Well, I've got 3, so it's fine. No, I got into consulting with utilities, which I thought was appropriate since my dad worked for an electric utility for so many years.
That makes sense.
But my primary function as a consultant, which it's Vanessa's response to it when I explained it to her was like, "Why would anybody pay you for that?" I help I help utilities evaluate enterprise software and help them buy it. So, the bill that you get from from Portland General Electric or Pacific Core or whatever, I work with them to select that and implement that software. And that software could be $500,000 to purchase or $5 million to purchase. And so they pay me to
You're a professional expert.
Well, that's what a consultant is, right? But I work primarily with public entities because they have to go through a public procurement process. So if you're not asleep yet, but it's fun. It's challenging. It's always different. And it's nice to be the guy in the room who knows what's going on.
So what are the things that give you joy in life?
Oh, the things that make me stop and just go, wow, that's awesome. I'll just off the top of my head, because I was thinking about this yesterday, a great song.
Music is huge in your life.
It is. Yeah. It always has been. I knew that I wanted to be involved in music from the time I was 7. I counted the days till I was 18 when my dad said at 18 I could decide what I wanted to do for a living. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do music, which I kind of still do. A song will just change my day. So that's amazing. You guys hear me talk about Sam all the time. When I get to watch him do anything where he excels,
or nothing like that, is there?
No, I mean, even if it's excelling within their bandwidth, it's just watching them with confidence, and their joy brings me joy, in the same way that their discouragement and their sadness, bleeds over to us.
Was that surprising to you that as a parent, how much joy your kids can bring you?
It's hard to say. I've been a parent for almost 30 years.
Well, yeah. Certainly was surprising to me, is why I'm asking.
I I think so. I think for me, what was most surprising is, you know, how your parents say, wait till you have kids, right?
Yep.
And you're like,
Yep.
whatever. It's at some point I realized how they feel looking at us. And that
Hmm.
made me appreciate how much they love me and all they've done for me that much more.
Yeah.
And their perspective of me. I remember my dad once said, you know, shortly before he died, you know, he mentioned this time where he's like, you were one of the most courageous people that I knew. And I'm
Oh,
like, why? And he goes, remember when you were in track and you lost every race and you threw up over after almost every race and you just kept showing up? And I'm like, Dad, I think I was just stupid. And he's like, but it really reminds me of our Father, our Heavenly Father. You know, we don't have I mean, we have an idea of what we think we're doing and what we think we're capable of, but then he sees us from this vantage and goes, you are so much more than you have any idea that you are.
yeah.
And that was an example. Like when my dad said that, I'm like, oh gosh. So like Sam doesn't realize how amazing he is. I have the opportunity to see that,
Yeah.
and that's joy. The other thing that popped in my head was when Vanessa and I get into giggle fits.
You get into giggle fits?
Oh yeah, it'd just be something stupid, and it comes in inane times. I'll just come up with a stupid joke, like the stupidest thing I can think of, and she'll start to laugh because she knows how stupid it is, and she knows that I know how stupid it is, and then I can't stop laughing at myself, and she think, you know, we just kind of devolve into this mess,
Oh,
you know.
that's precious.
It's fun, you know, and it's those times when like your love bank really starts to fill up because you just
Yeah.
realize how well connected you are with your partner.
Hmm.
So yeah, those are like three things, you know, off the top of my head that if I reflect on a day or on a period of time, those are things that I go, oh, that was, yeah,
People. For
yeah.
you, it's people, it's music, it's on the other hand, there's a good brisket,
I
a
wouldn't say
good
that
soccer
brings me,
game.
yeah, brisket. I wouldn't know if that's joy. Is more as if I get it right. There's relief
Relief.
and maybe a little bit of pride, you
Yeah.
know, in there. But I don't know about joy. That, to me, that's relaxing, right?
Yeah.
It's
So what do
like
you do then to relax?
brisket. Um, what is relaxing to me? You know, let me think about it. Running is relaxing to me because I get to kind of process stuff. It's the
Hmm.
result of running is relaxing. Most people be like, "You're a fool, Brookhouse," but that is relaxing. Sometimes coaching is relaxing, which again, people would say what, but what I'm thinking of the result of coaching, the result of
Yeah.
running is that I feel relaxed. And then kind of going back to things that bring us joy, when the three of us, you know, when Sam, Vanessa, and I sit down and we watch a show that we're all enjoying, that's super relaxing to me.
Yeah.
I think about what recharges me, and those
Yeah.
kind of things recharge me.
You know, and it maybe it's a little bit like when I hear people ask me why do I do some of the physical stuff around the church or at home? It's like that's relaxing to me. It's because I do so much work up here that it's nice to do something physical. You know,
Yeah.
whether it's I hate weeding, but there's a lot of other things that's not weeding
Like
that
mowing
I
the
just
lawn.
mowing the lawn can be. I'm not going to tell my boys that. I'm going to milk them for mowing the yard as many years as I
Yeah.
can. But yes, things like mowing the yard, you know, working on wood or just fixing stuff. You know, Dad was such a fixer, so you know, I feel connected. What makes you feel connected to your dad? What that I
Mm.
was just thinking about that because I know your time with your dad was precious, especially those last couple of years where you were able to sit on the porch and have long conversations
Yeah.
with him.
It's like you know, what reminds me most of him. If I walk out on my front porch and it's a beautiful day, I'll think
Mm,
about the day he died, because he died on a beautiful day, and I'll walk out and I'll sigh, and I
mm,
miss you, Dad, because you know it just reminds me of that place, and I'm not, and that's there's a bit of connection there. When I hear a song that I know that he would have appreciated,
hmm.
you know that kind of thing, and I can't remember, maybe it was Jan who had mentioned this, but it's at those times when you think, oh, I should call Dad and tell him about this.
Mm-hmm.
That you go, oh man. So like if I see a horse, like a beautiful horse,
Because he loved horses,
he
right?
loved horses. If I see a neat looking old pickup, I think of
Mm.
him with that. Or if I hear a really stupid joke, when I exchange text messages, with my siblings occasionally, it's usually my sister sending me a really terrible joke, and then she would go, "That made me think of Dad." And the other thing is, if anybody has seen, you probably haven't noticed, but my license plate cover in the back has this saying on it.
I've not noticed this.
A lot of people, next time you see my car, just look on
I
the
will.
back, and it says, "Arf Arf, Bow Wow Murphle, Yuki."
And
Okay.
that's something he said?
Well, it was something that, okay, when I was like, I don't know, he would come into my room to wake me up in the morning when I was a teenager, and he would throw open the door, and he would throw up a fist and go, "Arf Arf, Bow Wow," and he would do that to wake me up, and it was super annoying. And then at some point, it turned into "Arf Arf, Bow Wow, Murphle, Yuki." Murphle was a cat that we had, and then Yuki was just another way of saying what my mom would say was barf when we did that. Right. But then it just became something that we did. My dad would do that with his grandkids. We'd get together as a family. We'd have dinner, Thanksgiving or something. And before we left, everybody would gather around my dad. These little kids would come up and they would go, "Arf, arf, Bow Wow, Murphle, Yuki." And that was the thing. And if you look like
Oh my God.
a lot of his grandkids have tattoos now. He wrote out "Arf, arf" in his own handwriting. And they took it to tattoo artists, and they have like "Arf Arf" tattooed on their
What a
on their wrist.
legacy.
Yeah, it's so silly, and in terms of connection, when I see that, I just like, oh, Dad, and I think I did that the other day with Sam or something, and he didn't get to do that with my dad very much, but that was just one of those things that was part of who he was. It was
Yeah.
silly and fun. I mean, he was very loving. He could be really silly, and very loving in the midst of all his flaws.
Wow. Yeah. Huh. Arf, arf.
Bow Wow Murphle.
I,
Yuki.
I think one of the things that one of the things I've taken away from our conversation is I don't think I've realized how goofy, silly it's possible for you to get. Like
You've
the
seen
giggle
me at
fits.
VBS.
Well, that's true. That's true. But you don't show that at church very often, which is fine. You don't need to, but it's like, huh.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I guess here's the thing: is that there's Show Joe, which is like
There
is Cruise Ship Joe, which because I'm naturally an introvert. And so I have to kind of flip a switch to I don't mind going into that goofy kind of theatrical thing, but that's definitely a show. Then I'm kind of quiet, introspective, thoughtful, but then occasionally there's just let's do something really stupid. Or let's,
I love that about you.
And you'll see it when we play games sometimes. I'll introduce something so like absurd that I can't.
You do like the absurd. Yes, you do.
I love to giggle. And I decided maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I can't remember the actor's name. He's married to Megan Mullally. He's the guy from Parks and Rec.
Ron Swanson?
Yeah, that guy. I can't remember.
Yeah, I
the
like him.
actor's
He's
name.
funny.
But if you've ever seen him laugh, like like his real laugh is so dumb, And I saw that, and I'm like, I need to giggle more because that guy is unashamed of the way that he laughs, and he just comes out. And I'm like, okay, I've just made a decision that I'm not going to suppress a giggle when I feel it. I'm going to go ahead and let that come out, and I think that's been helpful. It invites other people to laugh too.
To wrap it up, is there anything that I didn't ask about that you wish I would have? Is there anything I should have people should know about you that we didn't touch on?
Well, I think something that everybody already knows is that I'm probably vulnerable to a fault. I mean, I'll open up to a lot of stuff that maybe I shouldn't or whatever. It's to my benefit and to my detriment at the same time. I don't know where it comes from, But I think, I mean, I was really grateful to have the opportunity to do the Worship Sunday a few weeks ago, where I'm just like, you already know who I am. So here's even more about kind of who I am. And there were things that I didn't have time to share that I considered sharing. One thing I'll share before we wrap up is that there, two members of my immediate family, my brother Eric and my daughter Marissa, who my brother's gay and came out when he was 20. And Marissa identifies as non-binary and has for the past 4 or 5 years. I don't know if you knew that, following her on Facebook or not, but it's an interesting, confusing thing to have people in your own family that you love. And so I like people to know that, because I remember some conversations that I had around people at church where they said some things that were difficult and offensive to me. Regardless of how you feel about sin, not a sin, or whatever, or you don't understand or don't understand. It's when you love somebody, it's like one thing to know, like, your mom's an idiot. It's another thing for somebody to call your mom an idiot, right? That they're somebody you love. It's okay for me to know that. It's not okay for you to disparage them. So I don't know why I thought about sharing that, but it's why I lean toward wanting to demonstrate love to people, because it just seems like the best thing to do. Anyway. So there you go.
Remember that there's somebody there who loves them, and they're a person. So.
Yeah.
Well, this has been delightful. I love you, Joe. I appreciate you. I think very, very highly of you, and we are so blessed. I am personally blessed to know you, and of course, the church is massively blessed to have you there. So thank you. And I know you need to get going because Sam has a lacrosse practice, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I'm helping coach right now, so I got invited to help coach, and that's a big deal to me. So I want to make sure I get there and I do it. So thank you, sir.
All right. Well, you guys take care. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we will see you guys on Sunday.
Take care.
Bye.